Tell me something about the Ani and how closely you were driving to the borders of Armenia.
It's amazing how close we get to Armenia. I mean, people have seen the pictures at Ani through virtual Ani and otherwise of going out there, and you can of course see into Armenia across the river, and but that wasn't really the most intense, because you look across to Armenia from Ani, and there is some work going on, like a quarry, and also, from what I understand, they're rebuilding a model of the cathedral that's on Ani, the iconic cathedral. I forget the name of it offhand, but it's known as the cathedral. They're rebuilding one on the Armenian side. I was looking for it actually with my binoculars, but I was not able to find it. But actually, it was driving from Kars to Udyr, or rather from Ani to Ararat. For those who don't know the details of Turkish geography, you actually get within about 50 meters the Armenian border, and you witness a military presence. You also, I thought this was the most surreal aspect, was cycling through the radio stations and coming across the Armenian station. So for kilometers and kilometers, I was going along the border here, which was snaking down through the valley, very close to the Armenian border, and and I heard all these Armenian newscasts, and I deciphered as much as I could, which wasn't all that much, to be honest. But then at some point I switched on my video camera so that I could actually record the roadway as well as I approach Ararat, as well as get the audio recording, because I think it was a real kind of experience to have these sort of empty roads along the border, except for a few commercial vehicles and some military traffic, and then just kind of going down this location.
Did you get a good sighting of Ararat? Did you see Ararat clear, or the clear day?
Oh, yes, actually, the one day I was able to see it clearly was the day I arrived. I was coming in from the north, and I was able to basically get a 270-degree view of Ararat going around it. Unfortunately, the 2 days I was down there, after that, I tried to photograph, and for the rest of the time it was covered in clouds, but coming in it was rather impressive.
Brian, there's so much to talk about. What other areas were outstanding in terms of discussion or bringing to our attention?
Well, I think, and something I was communicated to various people who've asked me since I got back is, what was the tenor of the experience? Were people resistant? It was kind of an unknown to understand how people would react, how people would be when I got out there. And mostly it was very positive. I got into Trabzon and I had some issues with my car, but somebody offered to drive me up to a place right in Trabzon called Kaymaklı Monastery. That's the Turkish name, of course, which is just a barn on somebody's property now. But it's a very well preserved location, so it's something worth visiting for the visceral experience of seeing these intense frescoes. It's actually one of my images, which is going to be very large-scale reproduction, is of the frescoes in this monastery location. But there's all along that road, especially the Van region, was very impressive. Ani, of course, was an experience in itself, but also things around the area. There are some villages that have some other Armenian churches right around Ani that people don't see, and they're not even very well photographed. So, well, not until now, at least.
You're listening to the Armenian Radio out of New Jersey on 89.5 FM. Our guest is Professor Brian Moriarty, and he is discussing his recent trip to eastern Turkey. Following the next song, we'll come back with Brian Moriarty.
I'll be putting work up on my website, which is www.brianmoriartyphotographs.com. Which will be listed in the newsletter, as well as you can become a fan of my photographs on Facebook, and you can follow my Twitter feed at twitter.com/MoriartyPhoto. where I'll be posting images as I process them. But more importantly is the exhibition the next stage of the project. As I stated earlier in our earlier interview, I see this work as not being, revolutionary completely so much as building on some work in the past, especially the work of Richard Nan Elbrecht over 20 years in eastern Turkey and Armenia, as well as Syria and Iraq and Iran. What I wanted to do was really recreate this visceral experience of being in these locations, because for some people it simply isn't realistic to go with these remote locations, which are remote once you get 6,000 miles away from here, which are still a trek. So, I've created these very high quality representations that I intend to reproduce full scale, 10, 15, 20 foot images that when someone sees in an exhibition they can step into, which they can step into as if they're experiencing it as close as they can get without actually being there. So we're hoping to do a series of exhibitions. We've discussed the possibility of St. Leon's in the diocese, as well as me and one of my collaborators who I'm working with to make these 3D representations, these sculpture representations. We're looking at doing something in Newark perhaps, and we have a few grant proposals in for some work in exhibitions in Brooklyn. So
that's a lot of exciting stuff to watch out for. Brian, thank you very much